Are you surrounding yourself? Are the 5 people that you spend the most time with already where you want to be? If so, I tip my hat to you. Good for you. But if not, be honest with yourself and ask, how much do you value your dreams? Because they can absolutely become a reality for you, but it is going to require that you make some changes. And again, it doesn't mean you have to cut these people out of your life, but it just means you have to bring some other people in.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Empowered Podcast. I'm here with my friend Geoff Woods. He and I met just about a week ago through another mutual friend, another entrepreneur and podcaster. And Geoff is chronicling, if that's how you say it, chronicling his journey to surround himself with not only like-minded people, but people who are further down the path than him, so he can learn from them, so he can do what he wants to do with life. And I'll have him tell you a little bit more about his journey, why he got started, and the process that he's going through. But let's welcome to the show the mentee or the mentor himself, Geoff Woods.
Thanks, Ellery. Really appreciate it.
You are very welcome. Are you the mentee or the mentor, or a combination of both?
Well, the podcast is The Mentee, and I am the mentee because I've just have formed relationships with some insanely inspiring mentors, and I press record on those conversations to try to help other people accelerate their lives. But in the process, the mentee ends up becoming the mentor, which is fun as well.
I think that's just kind of the natural progression of life. What is the, I don't know who said it. I don't know if it was like a Sun Tzu, or it says the student has become the teacher. And that's the whole process, right?
Yep, exactly.
And speaking of being the mentor, can we talk about the news on the air that you just told me about?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, tell me. Let's get started with a bang. Let's tell us how you just made $1,000.
I just made $1,000 in 2 days by pre-selling a course that I'm going to bring out.
Now, without giving us all of the details about the course, and maybe we can get into what your vision of that is here in just a second, but how did you pre-sell that thing?
I just reached out to some of my fans who I know trust me and follow me, and had built up a relationship and understood what their pains were, and just said, hey, if I were to bring out a course that did X, Y, and Z like you're asking for, what would you pay for it? And they told me, and I said, all right, let's do it. And they said, great, when's it going to come out? And I said, it's probably going to come out in 2 to 3 months. What I'd like to do is really leverage you, as let's make sure that we customize this together so that it accomplishes everything that you want it to accomplish. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm keeping this to a small group, anywhere from 20 to 50 people, and I'm going to pre-sell it to them, and then they're going to have intimate feedback in terms of customizing the content to make sure that it's absolutely applicable to them and maximizes their results, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a fantastic idea, because I heard, oh gosh, where was? Yeah, I think someone was telling me just yesterday, Geoff, that they heard. Who would that have been? I don't remember. They had heard, I think John Dumas talking at an Infusionsoft concert, convention, or what's the word I'm looking for? Just an Infusionsoft event, and they were saying, or he was telling me how John told the people in the audience about his revenue and that he's generating. Is he went to his audience and said, what do you want? What do you need? And they told him, and he created Podcaster's Paradise. And then he said, okay, what do you want? What do you need? And they said, we want to learn how to podcast. So he wrote the book and created his training course. So you're following in the footsteps, or following the path that some of the extremely successful people are doing. So you're getting fantastic advice.
Thank you. And that's the key. It's not like I'm thinking this up on my own. I seek counsel from those who are where I want to be. And I'm reaching out to those people who are light years ahead of me in business and in life, and saying, what have you done? What would you be doing if you were in my shoes? And they're telling me what to do. And then here's the key. I take action. I just do it. And it works.
And that brings us back to where it all started with this mentee podcast that you're running. Tell us the URL for that real quick. It's
just the www.menteepodcast.com.
Awesome. So go to Mentee if you're listening at home. maybe not if you're driving, but if you're on the treadmill, go to menteepodcast.com. And then if you are driving when you do get home or to the office, check that out. Because I love what Geoff is doing. He's kind of putting he's walking the talk, or talk, whatever the phrase there is. You wanted to change your sphere of influence. And so you have started developing the relationships to make that happen. How did that get started? Where did you get the idea, Geoff?
Yeah, sure. So to give you a little background on me, I'm in medical device sales. That's my day job. I wear scrubs every day. I run through hospitals, and I'm really blessed to sell a device that actually saves lives. It's a job I love. It's forwarded an awesome lifestyle. And really, I thought this was going to be it for me. I thought I was going to do this forever, stash my money in real estate and call it a day. But at the end of 2013, something happened. I witnessed, well, not witnessed, but one of my colleagues had a stroke, 35 years old.
Oh, wow.
And here I am going, holy crap, what would happen to my family if something happened to me? Whether I passed away or whether, I just couldn't work anymore. What would happen to my family? And I realized I did not like that answer. And the very next week, my company made a change to my commission structure. And overnight, my income was slashed by 40%.
Wow. I wish I could say I've never been there, but I have.
Right. And in those moments is really when greatness appears. I realized I have to build passive income. I absolutely cannot allow my life and my family's survival and quality of life to be dependent on a job. And so I realized that if I wanted to start building passive income, I had two options. I could try to figure it out on my own, or I could go find people that have already done it and ask them how they did it. And at that time, I heard the Jim Rohn quote, "You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." You ever heard that one, Ellery?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I sat there and I thought, who are those 5 people? And I challenge you, the listeners, right now. Who are the 5 people you actually spend the most time with? Think about it. It could be your spouse, your best friend. It could be your mailman. I mean, it doesn't matter. But who are those people you actually spend the most time with? And once you have those people in your mind, ask yourself, I know you all have dreams. We all have dreams of what we want our ideal lifestyle to look like. Are those 5 people living that lifestyle now? Not do they share your dreams, are they already living it? And for me, and probably for you, the answer is probably no. And that was a tough pill to swallow, because in that moment I realized that I needed to make some changes. All those people are still in my life. They're still dear friends. But in terms of who I go and seek counsel from, who I go and ask advice from, that changed. And so I set out on this mission just to surround myself with people who are where I wanted to be 10, 15 years down the road. And over the last year, the people that I have been able to form true, meaningful relationships with are they're insane. And I'll share some of them with you. And I don't share this to brag. I share this just to give you some context of what is possible if you actually put your mind to this. So people that I now have direct access to, the guy who is the CEO of the sports agency the movie Jerry Maguire was based on. It was the largest sports agency in the world at the time. He is my closest mentor. Wow. Another guy is a real estate investor. He's touched over 10,000 properties in his career, and now he's taken me on as a partner. And now I'm a partial owner of a massive building in North Carolina because I focused on building a relationship with a heavy hitter.
That would be Matt Terrio, would it?
No, not. But
do you know him?
I do know Matt, and I've met him in person.
Okay.
Guy who started Make-A-Wish Foundation, guy who started UGG Boots. I mean, these are people who have started something that have left real impressions in people's lives. And all of a sudden, these are the guys I'm talking to on a weekly basis. I'm just so grateful. And that's why I started the podcast, because I wanted to press record on those conversations so that other people could learn from them just as much as I am.
One thing you mentioned, Geoff, that I want to touch on that is of particular significance to me, and I think some of the people that are in this audience, is you didn't necessarily have a bad experience at work. You don't necessarily want to quit. You don't hate your job and you're not looking for something else. But you realized with a change of corporate structure, your income dropped significantly. And I have a friend who lives in Florida. He works for I don't want to give too much details. I don't think it would come back to bite anybody, but he works for a company in Florida, and he was working on a pretty large deal that would have made him over $10,000 in commission. It would have been a large check the company or his client would have paid. He would have gotten his commission, and he would have called it a day. But through just some odd events, nothing necessarily negative happened, but someone came in and suggested instead of a one-time check, they paid in 4 checks. They did a quarterly payment instead of a one-time payment. All of a sudden, his big, 5-figure check went down to just almost, not quite nothing. I mean, it was still pretty significant, but instead of a big payday that would have that he could have leveraged to do, whether it's a vacation or a conference or anything else, all of a sudden it was cut into 4 pieces. And I've been part of those deals where commission structures change and your percentages change. You still get paid money, but you get paid less. And so it doesn't always have to be, hey, I'm going to go start my own business because I hate where I am. I don't like not having complete control over some of my future, and I want to supplement it with something or start something on my own.
Correct. 100% correct.
So another thing that popped into my mind when you were talking about all these incredible people that you have met, Geoff, is someone's going to listen to this and be like, well, I don't have anything to offer. Why would these big name people, why would this Jerry Maguire dude and the guy who started this company and who's making all this money and influencing all these lives, why would they talk to me? I'm just fill in the blank. I'm just a worker. I don't have a podcast. I don't have a blog. What did you go to these people and say, hey, I need time on your calendar? How did you get that?
Yeah, and that's such a fantastic question. And I'll be transparent with all of you. That was my exact mindset when I started on this journey. What do I have to offer that would even be of interest to them? Why would they talk to me? But one thing that I've come to learn now that I do have relationships with these people, and I point blank ask them the question, why are you talking to me? Why are you helping me? And their answer is almost always the same. At some point, they had a mentor, someone who was light years ahead of them, who reached back, grabbed their hand, and helped pull them forward. And now they're doing the same because they want to pay it forward. They want to leave a legacy. You don't think you have anything to offer? I'm here to tell you, you do. If you have the hunger, if you have the desire to make a better life for yourself, to improve, then there is somebody who will be willing to pour into you. It's just that simple. You simply need to have the desire and the fortitude to take the action. That's all you need.
Yeah, I love that. I do masterminds as part of my business, Geoff, and people pay to be part of this. And there was a guy also in California who was interested, and he ended up not joining my last mastermind because he said exactly what you said. He felt like he wasn't ready and he didn't have anything to offer. But it was funny because we talked on the phone before, the first time I'd ever met him. We were talking on the phone, and he was telling me all the cool stuff that he was doing, how he wanted to start a business, how he had all of these contacts in Hollywood and was able to raise money for a charity event with just less than a week's notice because of the contacts and relationships that he had made. And I'm thinking, this is awesome. This is a great story. This guy would not only be a fantastic entrepreneur, but he would be a fantastic addition to the mastermind. But in his email, he says, I don't feel like I have anything to offer the group at this time. I have to pass. And we can't always see what other people see in us. The things that we take for granted are just skills. Like when you said you're walking through a hospital, all these things that you or think, man, that's just day to day. Someone out there thinks that's going to be the coolest career, or that guy is so talented, but we don't always see it ourselves.
Totally true. And one of my mentors shared with me recently, he said, it's tough to read the title when you're inside the box. This is the importance of surrounding yourself with people who are where you want to be. They're able to look at you objectively because they're outside of the box, and they're able to look at you and say, hey, this is what it says, this is what I see, and this is what we can do with it, and this is where it can go. That's the power. I mean, you saw so much in this gentleman, and he didn't see it. But it takes someone like you to be able to look at him objectively and say, hey, man, no, this is your value, and you may not even realize it yet. So let's stand in your own power, and let's go do something together.
And I emailed him back. I was like, if it's a money thing or if it's something else, that's fine. Just tell me. But if you think it's because I've kind of not harsh, but I was in email form, of course. I'm kind of the passive aggressive sometimes. I said, but if it's because you don't think you have anything to offer, don't let that be what stops you. You do have something to offer. And I just know that there are people, I talk to them who they don't see the value that they provide. And it's kind of a shame, but well, there's no buts. It is a shame, and we've got to act in spite of it, which takes me to my next question. You heard this Jim Rohn quote: "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." Why a podcast? Why did you leverage this awesome medium to do it? Why a podcast?
So the podcast actually was not the original play. I just started getting out there and started forming these relationships, and it wasn't until about 8 months in where I had already formed relationships with a lot of the people that I mentioned here today, that one of my new entrepreneur friends, again, outside the box, looking back in, looked at me and said, Geoff, look at the relationships you have been able to form in just a few short months. Why don't you do a podcast? Why don't you document this journey? Why don't you share the counsel you're receiving from your mentors? Don't you think that would be of value to other people? And I was like, holy crap. You're right. I would have never seen it.
Which, as a matter of fact, you were telling me, and you've had some pretty significant success with the podcast. You're, I think it was around 30 episodes, but you spent a good time. Top of new and noteworthy, front page of iTunes, all these things. So it turns out to have been a pretty good decision, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just so rewarding because it's at the point where I'm really making a sincere effort to connect with the listeners over the phone, and they're sharing their stories with how it's made an impact, how it's changed their way of thinking, and how it's inspired them to do X, Y, or Z. And that's what means the most to me. It's so cool.
Have you ever read the book Good to Great by Jim Collins?
I read it almost every year.
Awesome. I've only read it once, but there are a few key principles that I do keep going back to. I mentioned it in one of my most recent episodes. Is one of those kind of must-read books. But one of the things, as you know, Geoff, he says in the book, Jim says, you have to not only get the right people on the bus, but you have to get the wrong people off the bus. And you have to do this before you figure out where it's going. I want to talk about the get the wrong people off the bus part of that book. And you're talking about being the average. Well, if you have 5 great people and you add, or let's say, reverse that. Let's say you have, this is going to sound mean. If you have 5 bad people in your life and then you add 5 good people in your life, you've got 10 mediocre people. So how do we filter out and change the negative people, the doubters, the naysayers, all these people that we need to avoid? How did you get those people out of your life? To what extent? Because I know you said they're still around. They're still, still got their number in your phone, all these kinds of things. How did you get the wrong people off the bus?
Well, first thing I want to offer is that it's not exactly an even swap, one negative person for one positive. Because I think
that'd be too easy.
I think a negative person is way more toxic than I think it takes far more positive experiences in your life to wipe out a single negative. So
that's a genius statement right there.
So you have to be so hyper aware and hyper focused about the people you surround your time with or spend your time with. You have to make a conscious decision to only surround yourself with people that make you feel good. Here's the great thing. We all have this internal thing called our feelings. Become aware of how you feel when you interact with somebody. Here's something you can do today, and this will change your life if you do this. Move through the rest of your day. Every interaction you have, just ask yourself, how do I feel right now? How is this person making me feel? If they are making you feel anything other than a positive emotion, that's a problem. That is a problem.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people in my life who are great people, really good friends, but they're always criticizing. They're always challenging. They're always saying, what makes you think you can do that? Or they don't want to dream big. Those people are no longer in my life. And here's the deal. How do you go about distancing yourself? You do just that. You just add distance. It's not like you pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm making some changes in my life and you're one of them. See you later. That's not what happens. But maybe you don't answer their call. Maybe you take a few extra days to get back to them. And, over time, you just start to distance it more and more. And it becomes the new norm to where maybe you only chat every 2 weeks or every month, whatever it may be. But you must distance yourself from those people. And if there's anybody who's just point blank toxic, they're gone. You have to do it. You can't afford to not do this. And I know this is a tough pill to swallow, but I'm telling you, every person who has achieved tremendous success in their life has cut people out of their life at one point in time because they realized that those people were contaminating their success and not contributing toward their success. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Does that make sense, Ellery?
It does. It does. And you're right. It is kind of a hard lesson to hear, a hard pill to swallow. And I mentioned something about what we're talking about in one of my Toastmasters groups, and this lady came up. She's older than me. I think she's probably in her late 50s, early 60s, maybe. And she's like, "Well, I don't really agree with that. I think you got to kind of have." And I didn't have a chance to rebut her comments. She's like, "Yeah, I don't think that's great. You got to be nice to everybody." And I was like, "And that's why." And this sounds mean, but it's like in my head, and that's why you're not doing anything. And we think, okay, we've got all of these years ahead of us. Think about if you had 2 hours or you had just an hour for lunch. Do you want to spend that hour with someone who's positive and going somewhere in their life, or someone who is negative and just grumpy all the time and all they do is bitch about work?
You're totally right. And, it's not that you have to be not nice to these people. You can still treat everybody with respect. Everybody deserves respect. It's just a matter of you not putting effort into the relationship. That's not being mean. You're not saying anything negative to them. You're just distancing yourself. And that's okay. But, I'll paint two scenarios. Let's say you get to have one phone call with one friend today. And you have two options. The first friend, it's going to be, hey, what's up? Not much. You guys just kind of go back and forth talking about it, but nothing of substance really comes out of it. It's just kind of an update call. That's one of them. I'm sure we all have plenty of those calls. The other is you get to call a friend who asks you, Ellery, what are you working on right now? And they pour into you and they tell you how you can absolutely go out there and achieve your goals, and you can absolutely do whatever it is that you would set your mind to. And here, let me show you how. Here's what I would do in that situation. And you know what? I think I know somebody who's actually already done that. Let me connect you with that person. Now, that's just one experience. Which are you going to get more out of, Ellery?
The second one.
The second one.
Yeah.
Now imagine if those were all of your conversations. Every day. Consistently having conversations with people who want to pour into you, people who challenge your way of thinking and help show you what they see looking at the box, not you trying to look from inside the box. How would your life change?
Does this ever get exhausting to you, Geoff? Because I'm sitting here thinking sometimes you just need a break. You need to pull back. With all of these positive people in your life, the ones who are constantly, and this is where the exhausting comment comes from, the ones that are always pushing you to do something more with your life, doing something better or different, or keeping you accountable to the goals that you set for yourself. At what point do you just like, man, I just need a break? Have you been there? What's that like?
Well,
if you have?
Yeah, and I mean, as a mentor can never want the mentee to succeed more than the mentee wants it themselves. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I have such a strong drive such a thirst to make progress that I love it every single day. That's just my personality, though. I get that. I thrive on interacting with others. That's part of being an extrovert. But not everybody is an extrovert. Some people are introverted. And
I'm very introverted.
Yeah, so I totally can see why you would ask that question. And it's not like every conversation they're pushing you or whatever, but it's just surrounding yourself with people who are going to support you, with people who are going to lift you up, and the people who are going to encourage you and let you know that you can do whatever it is that you want to do, and they're there to be a support system for you. Does that make sense?
It does, and the longer I do this, I still get tired. I still need breaks, but 8 hours of sitting in or as I'm doing right now, standing, 8 hours of being in the office here is so much less draining than 8 hours at my corporate office. In fact, I could do this for 20 hours. Sometimes I have, which isn't you need a balance, but I could do this for 20 hours and still have energy because like what you're saying, it's the positive environment. It's the ability to call somebody up on the phone or have a Skype chat like we're doing, or do a video call with somebody and have them say this is possible, whatever this is in your head right now when you're listening to this. These things are possible for you, as opposed to the people who we need to get off this bus, who need to get off the Geoff train, and that just weigh you down. It's an incredible feeling when you surrounded yourself with the right people.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally true.
So where are you going with this now? You're talking about starting a training course, which we mentioned a few minutes ago. Do you blog as well, or is it primarily podcast?
I do the podcast, and I'll do kind of a blog, show notes. My big goal is to become a contributing writer for like an entrepreneur.com, so that I can do some more writing on major platforms. But I really pour into the podcast, and I'm at the point where my big focus is to make connections with the listeners. And so for you people who are listening, if this concept of surrounding yourself with the right people, upgrading your circle of influence, if this resonates with you, if this is something that you want to take on in your life and you want help, I love talking to people like you. That's what really gets me going. And it's because I've had conversations with people like you that I'm developing the course, because you've asked for it. You've said, how can you go out and meet your own inspiring mentors? How can you change your mindset to believe that you're worthy of a heavy-hitting mentor? What do you go up and say to these people? And that's really where the course is. It's all been driven by your feedback. I'm going to bring whatever solutions to you that you want. You just have to share it with me. So my goal is to interact with you. I
100% agree with that. I wish I had more interaction with listeners and readers. When I do get it, I love it. And the guy I mentioned from California who says he's not ready, I get that a lot too. It's just I'm not ready to talk to you. I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what I do know. And sometimes that's the perfect time.
Yeah, I have to jump in here because there's never a perfect time. You're never going to be ready. But what you can do is ask questions. So if you feel like you're not ready, if you feel like it's not the right time, you need to start asking people, reaching out to people saying, hey, have you ever felt like this? What would you do if you were in my shoes? This is what's going through my head. What do you think about that? Just start asking people for feedback. The key is to make sure that you're asking the right people. Because if you just go to any single person and ask that, you're just going to get an opinion. And opinions are worth as much as you pay for them. Nothing. Counsel is advice given by those who are qualified. Just like if I want to get tips on what stocks to buy, I'm not going to go ask my mailman. That's not his profession. Maybe he's a day trader and I'm unaware of it, but I'm not going to go to that person and ask for that counsel. I'd go to Warren Buffett. I'm not going to go to Warren Buffett and ask him for advice on my golf swing, though. I'd rather go to Tiger Woods for that. You get it?
I do. So how do you get those? You're talking about going to these heavy hitters, these big name people, do you start there, or do you leverage a relationship to get, you start off at the next level, and then you go 2 levels up, and then you go 3 levels up? What's your strategy there to connect with these people?
If you attach yourself to the outcome too much, you'll never make it. If you set out with the intention of, I am going to go meet Warren Buffett, and that's all you're focusing on, you're not going to get there. Because here's the thing, whatever you want, when you cast a vision, the universe conspires to make it happen for you. And little clues, little opportunities are left in your path along the way. But you have to be aware of them, and you have to be willing to seize those opportunities. So it starts by being more interested than interesting. You have to be interested and just approach your life with a general sense of curiosity and wonder. When things happen, if there's an opportunity to go out to a networking event, just go. You don't know what you have to offer? That's okay. Go because you want to check it out, because you want to surround yourself with amazing people. That's how it started for me. I literally just started going to some of these networking events, and when people said, "What do you do?" I say, "Well, my day job is medical device sales, but I'm in that transition toward entrepreneurship." "Oh, what do you want to build?" "I don't know yet, but all I know is that I want to surround myself with amazing people. Tell me about you."
And I think that's the key that gets you in the door for anybody.
Bingo.
I mean, that most people, I rarely get turned down for someone to come on the podcast, but it's never been a no. Most of it's usually a not yet, or I can't right now, but that's beside the point. If you go into any of these conversations and say, "Man, I would like to learn about you and what you are doing, what drives you, and learn a little bit more about your business," most people are going to be okay with that. I mean, you may not get in, I'm sure Warren Buffett, as your example, would get those 1,000 times a day, but you could leverage the way up there. But if you look at the process, if you don't look at a destination, and I think that's kind of what you were saying, if you look at it as a learning process, I want to go out there and not only meet people, but learn incredible advice from incredible people. Every conversation is a win.
Absolutely. And this is the shift. If you can set an intention when you're about to connect with somebody, whether it's face-to-face, on the phone, business meeting, personal meeting, whatever, if you can consciously say to yourself, I'm setting the intention of connecting with this person, of letting them know that I'm listening to them and that I want to learn about them. If you can do that, this will fundamentally change your life. Because in those conversations, you're going to start asking questions about them. You're going to be interested in them instead of trying to get them to think that you are interesting. But the thing is, when you're interested in others, others think you're interesting. People love to talk about themselves.
It's like that, I don't know, cartoon or whatever it is, that the person just asks questions and the other person just is talking the whole time, and they think, "Oh man, you're such a great conversationalist," when actually it was that person that you've got talking. And that's just ask those questions. Ask what drives you. How did you get where you are? Getting in the story arc, if you will, out of somebody. That's where the relationship can grow. Now, here's something I'm kind of interested in, Geoff. You've been very successful in staying in touch with some of these really busy, really successful people who are further down this entrepreneur road than we are. How have you kept those conversations going over time? How have you stayed in contact instead of it just being a 1-hour conversation and, thanks, I'll never talk to you again?
Sure. Well, first I make it about them, and I ask myself, what is valuable to them? If they are going to invest their precious time in me once, they want to get a good return on their investment. And the type of return that these guys are looking for is just you to take action and be successful. They just want you to succeed. That's why they help you in the first place. So what I'll often do is I, number one, respect their time, and it's not like I'm pinging them every day, but I'll send a text or an email or a phone call and just say, "Hey, Dave, last time we spoke, you told me that I needed to get out of my own way. that I was allowing my ego to cloud my judgment, and you told me that I should do X, Y, and Z. I went and I did those things, and here's what happened. And I want you to know I really appreciate all the advice you've given me. It's making a huge difference. Thank you so much. And then
It's a great email.
So that could just be, and I don't ask for anything. Or I could say, hey, I'd love to get together again in the next few weeks if your schedule permits.
And
that's it.
That's a good way to do it. I think you hit on something. Is so many times I have conversations that go kind of like what you're talking about, and you don't hear from the other person who has just asked you what to do. I would love to know how people are taking what I've talked about with them and applied it to their life, and how they're getting results, whether it worked or not. That there's a lot of value. I would love to have more of those follow-ups with people and say, hey, it worked or it didn't work. I get some emails where, hey, I thought of you and I read this. Those are good emails too.
Mm-hmm.
And it just it tells people that you are connected and interested, but also gives me as a person receiving that email, hey, that person is a real person, because we're online and sometimes got to make sure that they're a real person, but also, another source of information. Or if you tell me that you've just read an article about how to write a blog, I know that person's interested in blogging. And if they're in my audience and they have the same question and like that article, that's another way that I can turn right back around and serve them in a similar way with a different perspective or a more detailed look or something like that too.
Absolutely. And you touched on one thing that struck a chord with me. That's something that I do. I'll send a text message just to say, hey, Dave, was thinking about you just now. I want you to know how much I appreciate that you're in my life. And I'll just send that text. I'm not expecting anything in return. It's 100% sincere. I mean it. And I just send it to them because it lets them know that I'm thinking about them. And it makes them feel good. It makes them feel like they're making a difference in my life, which they are. So it's just about communicating these things. When people pour into you, when a mentor spends their time and pours into you, they just want to see you succeed. So give them updates. Let them know how much you appreciate them. That's it. That's how you build a relationship. It's really that simple.
That's awesome. Who is your coolest guest that you have come through, either on your podcast or before you were doing that? Who's the coolest person that you've just thought, man, they're awesome. I love what they're doing.
Oh, well, that's a challenging question for me to answer because, most of these people, they're my mentors. They're not just guests. Everybody who is on my podcast, I actually have a relationship with. They're not all mentors, meaning like that we have an intimate relationship where we're constantly interacting, but I've interacted with all of them in some capacity and they've touched me in a certain way. A guy I had on recently who I met at the bar at a hotel for a networking event, heard the guy mention the word real estate, which my ears perked up because I'm in real estate investing, and started chatting with him. Turns out he was the guy in charge of building the Las Vegas City Center, which is the largest privately funded construction project in the history of the United States. Steve Wynn was his direct mentor. And so we started having drinks and we're, spending time together. I probably spent, anywhere from 4 to 6 hours with the guy over a 24-hour period. And we've totally kept in touch. We, when I'm down in the area where he lives, we were going to grab dinner and I invest in that relationship. And he was a cool guy to meet. And to hear his story about building that project was awesome. Another guy was Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income. I met Pat through mutual friends when I just started asking people if they knew any successful podcasters because I wanted to get into podcasting, and I got connected with Pat and I recorded our conversation just because I wanted to be able to re-listen to it. And it ended up becoming a podcast episode of Pat mentoring me for a solid hour on how I should launch my podcast. And that led to me hitting the top 20 in business at one point. So those are two examples.
It's hard to beat Pat in several different ways. I remember last year at New Media Expo, I was at a private event with the Internet Business Mastery guys, and I was talking. Actually, my wife and I were talking to Jeremy Franzen, and these guys have been millionaires for a long time. They have a very successful podcast, And Jeremy was telling me that they wished, which, by the way, Pat got his start in large part because of advice that Jeremy and Jason, the guys behind Internet Business Mastery, gave Pat sitting at a Panera Bread in 2007, 2008. And so I'm here talking about Jeremy, and he's telling me that they wish they had some of the levels of success that Pat had with his podcast. So getting podcast advice from one of the top podcasters probably in the world is not a bad way to start. Any kind of like super potent, actionable tip for someone who might be starting their podcast soon?
Reach out to those who have done it before. So here's the thing. I want everybody to be able to get real value out of this episode. I want you to have something that you can take as soon as you press stop on this episode and go out and do. So if it's okay, is it okay if I get into some of this, Ellery?
Yeah, go for it.
Cool. Let's talk about how you can go out and find and connect with some of these really heavy hitters. Step one is to get clarity on what it is that you want. So, Ellery, can we use you as the example?
Why not?
Yeah. So, what's your big thing that you want to accomplish right now? What's the one thing?
I would say for me, building, getting more people signed up for my membership site.
Okay. And if you had to imagine a specific person or a type of person who would be able to show you that, what would they be like?
Like someone who might have the membership site that I could learn from?
Sure. Is that it?
Well, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I didn't know if you were looking for a specific person,
not
or
a specific name. The
okay.
idea of a person. So you are looking for someone who has had tremendous success building membership sites. Correct?
Yeah.
Sweet. So that's step one. Identify what you want and identify what that person would be like. Step two is just to talk about it. Talk about it consistently. And what I mean by that is when you pick up the phone and you call your best friend and the conversation starts like, "Hey, Ellery, what's up?" And he says, "Not much. What's up, Geoff?" And I say, "Not much." You got to change that. That's a missed opportunity. When you are on the phone with your mom, when you're on the phone with your dad, when you're on the phone with your coworker, your best friend, I don't care who it is, when they ask you what's new or what's up, which every conversation starts that way, instead of saying nothing much, start saying, a lot recently, I've been focusing on my membership site. It's going really well. And right now, I'm looking to surround myself and meet other people who have had tremendous success building membership sites. And zip your mouth. One of four things is going to happen in this moment. Number one, you're talking to the person who can help you directly, and you may not have known it. Boom, you're done. Drop the mic. you're done.
That'd be a nice way to do it.
Two, they're not the person, but they know someone who is, and they would consider connecting you. Three, they're not the person. They don't know anybody, but what you've done is you've planted a seed. And as they go throughout their days and they continue to form new connections with people, if they come across somebody who happens to be great at building membership sites, they'd go, "Oh, hey, I got to connect them with Ellery." And they'd consider making that connection. The fourth option is they do absolutely nothing, which at what point what'd you lose, Ellery?
Well, nothing, but I think there might be something to gain even from option 4.
How so?
I was holding a meetup or co-hosting one last week, and I referenced a phrase. I think Einstein might have said it, but I'm not sure, Geoff. He says, the genius is in the simplicity. So if this number 4 is not going to help you, they don't know anybody, if they ask, what is that? I think that'd be for me, that would be a likely scenario. Oh, what's a membership site? Being able to explain what we do or what we want to do to someone who is clueless about what that is, we force ourselves to simplify it in our minds enough to where anybody can understand it. And once we've done that, that's really a good launching pad for whatever success we want to see. When we can take it and explain it in a way that a 5-year-old can understand, I think that's, I don't want to say good advice because it sounds like I'm tooting my own horn, but that's a good place to start for anyone who's wanting to build a business, being able to explain what you do to someone who is absolutely clueless about your market or niche.
And I'll build on that. This is from a conversation I had with Bruce Buffer, the guy who he's the host of all the UFC fights. And he has what he calls his 3-foot theory, where it has 2 prongs. One is that anybody within 3 feet of him, he tries to help. So it's just an incredible service attitude. The other side is anybody within 3 feet of him, he wants to talk about his business with. Because if it's your business, you should believe in it. And you should believe in it because it helps people. Otherwise, you're in the wrong business. So if you do believe in your business, and if your business does help people, you should. It's for everyone. You should talk about it consistently with everybody. So talk about what it is that you want consistently. It's amazing how rapidly things will come to you. And I'll share 2 examples. One was this morning, I was getting interviewed on another podcast, and I did this exercise, and the podcast host mentioned that he wants to be the next Tony Robbins. And I said, so is it fair to say that you want to surround yourself with people who are successful public speakers? He said, yes. And I said, well, one of my mentors happens to be the former executive vice president for Tony Robbins. He was Tony's number 2 man for 10 plus years. And I connected him with him. I would have never known what he was looking for unless he had simply talked about it. And now he's literally 2 degrees of separation from Tony.
That's pretty awesome. And just your episode with Bruce, I'm going to give everybody some information. It's actually your episode 20, and it's around the 13-minute mark where he talks about what you just said. And I only know this. I didn't take copious notes of the episode, but I told one of my friends, Catalyst John, about that. I actually messaged him with the link to your site, to that episode, and said it's around the 13-minute mark. And that he does coaching just like I do coaching. And if we believe that what we have to offer will benefit somebody, it's almost, if not 100%, our obligation to tell them about it. And I've used the analogy in the past about having a glass of water and you're surrounded by thirsty people. How pissed off are they going to be, Geoff, if they're thirsty and they later found out that you had the glass of water that they need, but you never offered it to them or you never told them about it?
Absolutely. Such a great example.
And to me, that's what Bruce said, and I loved that enough to re-listen to what he said, and then share that with my friend John, who's on the opposite coast of you. He's down in Florida, but just fantastic advice from Bruce. So thanks for mentioning it again. So that was, I think, step 1 and step 2 when I got off on this tangent of making it simple with the 4th person. What comes next?
So step 1 was just to get clarity on what you want. Step 2 is simply to talk about it. And here's the thing. I promise if you do this, if you truly do this, if you can get clarity on what it is that you want and you can talk about it consistently, things will happen for you. I promise. The very first time I did this, I was sitting down in front of a guy who, long story to how we ended up connecting, but he said, what are you looking for? And I said, I'm looking to surround myself with successful real estate investors. Because at the time, getting into real estate was my main focus. And the guy looks at me and just says, you know what? Come to my house tomorrow. The guy just invites me to his house. I've never met him before, but he invites me to his house. I go. He introduces me to a man named Dave Michael, who is now my real estate mentor. He's the guy who's done over 10,000 transactions in his life. He eventually, after we built enough of a relationship, he took me on as a partner. And that's how I got into real estate investing. That's how I'm an owner of this building in North Carolina. Because one time I opened my mouth and shared what I was looking for.
Well, that's pretty powerful, Geoff, and it comes from it's not even so simple as what's in it for me or what can I do for you or even what can you do for me. It's just, this is what I'm trying to do, and I'd love to hear more about what you're doing. And it just, I don't know what the phrase or the term would be, but it creates this environment where people can open up and talk, and it's not salesy. It's not all about me. It's let's just share a moment in time. As corny as that sounds, but let's just chat for a moment and see what comes out of it, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's nothing wrong with talking about what interests you. When people say "What's up?" or what's new, technically they are asking you. Even though it's just become a phrase, a figure of speech. take the opportunity to tell people what's going on in your life and what you're interested in. I've done this so many times. It went from real estate investing to podcasts. That's how I met Pat Flynn, to me saying how when people say what's new, and I would talk about how I wanted to become a contributing writer for Entrepreneur Magazine, and I'm looking to surround myself with successful writers and editors. I got connected with the contributor's editor in under a week of starting to talk about this. I mean,
Wow.
it is so freaking rapid and accurate. It's silly. Just go do it.
The proof is in the pudding. There's specific results right there. Before my last question, Geoff, what was the last movie you saw?
I just saw The Judge. Although technically I did just see a little bit of Frozen. My daughter's watching it right
now. Is The Judge, is that the one with Iron Man and
yes. Yeah, Robert Downey Jr. Yes.
And Robert Duvall. That's the name I couldn't think of.
Yes.
How was that?
It was good. I didn't know what to expect, but I enjoyed it. Great movie.
Another random question. Are you going to see Furious 7?
Oh.
Do you like those movies?
The only reason I may is because one of my buddies is actually in it. So we'll see. Very cool.
We'll see. Yeah, we've seen them, all of them. Except for like the first 5 minutes of Tokyo Drift, but we like those movies, and we'll probably go here in the next couple weeks. But we have not seen The Judge, although it looked like a pretty solid movie. Well, Geoff, what is one tip or piece of advice who might be might be in a position you were a year ago or 2 years ago when you first heard you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with? What's one tip or piece of advice you would give that person in that position?
I would say, number one, just be real honest with yourself. Are you surrounding yourself, are the 5 people that you spend the most time with already where you want to be? If so, I tip my hat to you. Good for you. But if not, be honest with yourself and ask, how much do you value your dreams? Because they can absolutely become a reality for you, but it is going to require that you make some changes. And again, it doesn't mean you have to cut these people out of your life, but it just means you have to bring some other people in. And if you want to know how you can actually do that, I've got a few options for you. Number one, I have a free gift for you. These are the 5 steps that I realized I took. I didn't do this proactively. It's just as I look back and say, what were the things that help me? These are the 5 steps I took to finding my ideal mentors. And you guys can get that at www.menteepodcast.com/empowered. That's free. And if you really want to take this seriously, I'm pre-selling the course right now. I'm going to be launching this in the next few months, and this is an opportunity for you to interact directly with me and tell me exactly what you want, what exactly you need help with, and I can incorporate that into the course. And if you want to learn more about the course, it's just www.menteepodcast.com/course.
That's awesome, Geoff. Thanks for sharing that. I was about to ask where we could find you, but you already answered that question.
And here's one thing, my why, my real big why, is to help you accelerate your life. So with that, I'm not that guy who's out there like trying to charge an arm and a leg for all this stuff. I am making everything that I do as affordable so that really everybody should be able to do this. If you want this bad enough, you can make it happen. So I encourage you guys to take action, whether that's by doing business with me or going and investing your resources with someone else. Go take action.
That's awesome, Geoff. If someone did want to connect with you other than, or in addition to, I should say, going to the website, are you on Twitter, Facebook, or something like that? Where can we connect with you?
Sure am. Twitter is at Geoff Woods. It's Geoff with a G, Geoff, and I'll send you the link to the Facebook gallery so you can just put it in the show notes. And if you want to connect with me, you can 2 options. You can go to my website, mentee-podcast.com, and just click on the contact tab. Shoot me a thing through there. It comes directly to me. It doesn't go to my assistant. I'm happy to interact with you. Or if you even just want to line up a call to bounce off some ideas, just mentee-podcast.com/call.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for spending time with us, Geoff. Thanks for all of the words of wisdom, and I'm excited to see how people change their sphere of influence and really get some traction, start taking off. So thanks again for coming on the show today. It's been great meeting you over the last couple weeks, and wish you all the best.
Awesome. Thanks, Ellery.
Man, I hope you enjoyed that podcast. If I do say so myself, that was a really good one. Geoff is a very inspirational guy. It puts pressure on me to be continually growing and evolving, to be very intentional and mindful about who I give my time to, because we all have 24 hours in the day. No more, no less. And let me throw out a couple names for you. One, Beethoven. I'm pretty sure he had, I think, 16 or 17 kids and was still able to create all of those symphonies. And we all have, again, the same amount of time every day. And if we're going to give someone 30 minutes or an hour of our time, don't we want that person to not only be grateful, or the alternative is give that time to someone who we are going to get so much valuable information from, or just really develop a great relationship or learn something new. Because imagine I talk a lot about the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you've listened to the show or read the blog, you know it's one of my favorite books. But Stephen Covey talks about begin with the end in mind. And he says, imagine, you've got basically 3 months to live. And we're not going to get morbid, but imagine that your time was limited, because in reality, it is. If you only had 3 months to live, what would you do with that time? Would you spend it with friends and family? Would you continue going to work? Would you go to a job that you hated? Or would you do things that you loved, that added value to the time that you had left, or added value to the people that you cared about? And I want you to just think about that as you are adding things to your calendar, or you are taking things off of your calendar. Be really mindful about who gets on your plate, who gets a slice of your life, who gets to spend time with you. One kind of off-topic, completely random thing that I want to mention, don't tune me out. If you have a WordPress website and you're listening to this in April of 2015, make sure you update that. There's been some vulnerabilities detected, and I don't know exactly where they're coming from or what the plugins are specifically, but make sure you are updating those plugins. If you have Bluehost, you've probably gotten an email saying that we have updated you to the latest version of WordPress. But if you're not on WordPress, it may not be an issue, but it might. So I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know the solution, but make sure all of your software is updated. That's just a general public service announcement. Even if you're listening to this, in 2025 or something, whatever platform we're using in 2025, make sure that your software has all of those security updates. I want to mention one of the coolest things that I'm working on. You've heard me maybe talk about this, but I want to mention my membership site. I am taking some of a training course that I did. It was $1,200, and I am breaking that down into smaller bite-sized chunks. So there is a series of lessons that is all about e-commerce, how to set it up, the plugins that I use, how to configure those, what types of digital media you can sell to get your business started, plus what kind of payment gateways are out there, which ones are best, the benefits, the drawbacks, all of those things. You can get those modules, all of them, you can get that package for $67 on my site. If you go to ellerywells.com and you go to store, you can get it for $67. But here's the thing. If you go to members.ellerywells.com/30 for one, and there's a promo. If you go to this podcast episode, you can get a full month for free. You can get completely free access to that by becoming a member of the site. Now, I'm going to take this $1,200 course, and I'm going to break it down into these bite-sized chunks. After talking with Keith Griffiths a couple months ago, you might have caught that episode. After talking with Geoff Woods, who will be coming in a future episode, I've decided that I need to break some of this really long, extensive PhD level content and make it into maybe something like an e-commerce 101. So I'm going to do that. Again, if you go to my membership site and you register as a new member, you will get free access to all of that. Or if you would rather just get a year's worth of access to those lessons for $67, you're absolutely more than welcome to do that. I just want you to get started. I want to break down any barrier standing between you and your dream, between you and living on the beach, in the mountains, in the cabin, doing what you love with your life. I want to destroy those barriers, and this is just another way that I'm able to do that for you. So go to empoweredpodcast.com/81, and you'll get all those links. You'll get the link for the month free of the membership site. And if you would, give me a rating and review in iTunes and Stitcher. All of those links, again, empoweredpodcast.com/81. I'd love those reviews. Send me an email, leave a comment. I want to hear from you. Yes, I'm talking to you. I want to actually hear from you. If you're listening to my voice, I want to know your thoughts. I want to know what works, what doesn't work, so that I can best serve you in what you're going through in the moment. Have a wonderful day. This is another episode of the Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Ellery Wells. Go do something awesome. Beethoven actually only had 7 kids. Whoops.